Hello, this is Jeremy Mitchell, and we're back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast. Let's get right into it. Democrat senator wants to block Hurricane Idalia relief unless it includes more money for Ukraine from base politics, and I posted that. And I said, they are up Ukraine's ass almost more so than Israel's, which is really incredible to think about, because, they're only very up Israel's ass, but now they're very up Ukraine's ass, and yeah. Um, uh... Yeah, so that's interesting. They're really into this Ukraine grift right now. They want to give all the money to Ukraine. I don't think that's good. I think we gotta. Donald Trump just put America first. He was kind of in the pockets of the globalists as well. But I do think that's something we need to focus on instead of all this globalism throwing our money at Ukraine and Israel and all the other countries. Nevada Ranger drives through climate change protester blockade on the road to Burning Man. Officer then pulls gun and violently arrests protesters from Frosty Snowman, and that's crosses from the r/Reno subreddit. And I said, I'm 50-50 on this. I think you have the right to stand your ground, but I also do think you could consider blocking the roadways to be a NAP violation. Then we have Saudi Arabia to execute man over Twitter postings. Saudi Arabia is partners with Elon Musk in owning Twitter, and that's a link from the independent.co.uk by Ninja Lover. And I said, if a Western government threw someone in jail for life for posting what they deemed to be hate speech or misinformation, you would be the first in line justifying it. Well, not Ninja Lover, that's someone else, but the thing is that everyone's like, oh, we should all be, it's free speech, we shouldn't execute people for their speech, but they'd be the first in line justifying if they posted something that was considered hate speech or misinformation, I would say. Then we have Tim Pool admits to lying all the time from Ninja Lover, and that's a video from the Rational National YouTube channel, and I said, it's social media. Everyone's a grifter and will lie when necessary. Edit. Channel appears to also be a look how bad the right is one. And you have to remember that everyone's a grifter when it comes to politics. And I don't think Tim Pool's is the exception, but everyone's really a grifter in politics. They only ever seem to care when the out group does it, I would say. Then we have Republican lawmakers want to stop businesses in a small Florida town from displaying rainbow stickers so that they're a safe place for LGBTQ plus people, from BusinessInsider.com by Donald Key, and I said, definite government overreach. Private businesses be able to display whatever they want on their property. Then we have independents with a lowercase I are now Arizona's biggest voter group, from azcapitaltimes.com by another one from Donald Key, and I said what I said. I said, they have an independent U.S. senator as well in Sonoma. I think Bernie Sanders is next game when there are elections. The Senate is independent, so let's see if Sonoma can do it as well. And we have, this is why we need some form of CPS. YouTube monolithically duct tape starved kids until one 12-year-old old escaped. And that's a cross post from by Tom 13 from the I'm a total piece of shit subreddit. And I would agree. I personally would. I don't know if I would agree with that. The thing with the CPS is, they can always kind of exceed their bounds. I think what the smart is doing is wrong. I think it's a NAP violation. But I think it should be up to the kids they need to take some responsibility and try and fend for themselves. That's my fault there. People need to learn how to fend for themselves as soon as possible, I would say. And sometimes, there's not always going to be someone out there to save you. You gotta try and save yourself. So that's my fault there. Then we have pastors called out far-right Christian nationalism as a source of white supremacist violence, the great scourge of the USA democracy and the Christian faith, from alternate.org by Chi-Town20. And that's crosswords from Christianity subreddit. And I definitely think we should try and keep church and state separate. But then again, I really just want to get rid of the state at this point. So, if you want to do it, if you want to worship the church, you can worship the church. If you want to worship the state, you can worship the state. But try not to combine those two things. I would say, just and try and keep those to your. Try and keep that worship to yourself, and don't force it on other people. I would say that's another thing that I think it's important to talk about. Then we have prosecutors snarl in Massachusetts drug lab case disbarred from news.bloomberglaw.com by an inch lover, and I think that is good. I always like when the prosecutors are disbarred. The prosecutors are very villainous. I would say I wish we could just get rid of all the prosecutors and just let people just settle things on their own. We shouldn't have these courts of law. I think we just need the people to take the law into their own hands rather than have these courts of law determining what they think is right with all their biases and agendas. So that's my thought there. Then we have 77% of young Americans too fat, mentally ill, on drugs join the military. Ironically, this is fantastic news, and that's from AmericanMilitaryNews.com from International Silver One. And this cross was from the Science Uncensored subreddit. And I said, Americans are incompetent enough, and yelling on social media is a lot easier for all parties involved. That's a good take as why people are probably not gonna have civil wars. Vladimir Graff is there. So I think we're just gonna we're gonna circle jerk, and I don't think a lot of people are competent enough to really do anything other than circle jerk on social media. So that's why I don't think anything's gonna change anytime soon. I would say. Then we have hate body odor. You're more likely to have right-wing views from The Guardian, and I posted that, and I said, saw this on Chew on Head's Twitter, been seeing stuff like this and this, and I linked to a story about how, do you boast about your fitness? Watch out, you'll unavoidably become right-wing. That's also from The Guardian. It seems the more healthy, especially more traditionally normal, quote-unquote normal you are, the more likely you're going to be seen as right-wing. The publisher knows exactly what's doing with the headline. The article is just for show. That's my thoughts there. It's just everything. They just have these headlines like this. Are just kind of just agenda. It's so everything's. If you disagree with all of the official DNC narrative, you're right wing. So that's just kind of where we're at right now. Then we have the government wouldn't do that. The CIA's Operation Northwoods had plans for quote-unquote terror campaigns and bombings of U.S. civilian targets in Miami and Washington and instigated war with Cuba from Ashley St. Clair on Twitter. And I posted that, and I said, if you think any government is above bombing its own citizens, you are naive about just how awful humans can be. Then we have the easiest and most effective way to breed conformity and stigmatize dissent is telling people that the moment is too scary, one's opponents are too dangerous to permit anything but lockstep unity. It's such a primitive tactic, but by all appearances, it still works. And that was from Glenn Greenwald on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, agreed. Fear has always been one of the greatest ways to control people. That's why I think, people love fear-mongering about Trump so much. But, a guy who brags about remembering a pattern of 5 words in a row doesn't really strike me as competent enough to do that. So that's why, you can't let the fear-mongers win. You gotta stand up and be brave and fight for liberty. You just can't let the fear-mongers control your life. Then we have, I have an autoimmune disorder, and mask mandates actually made it harder for me to protect myself from sickness. It should be up to each person to decide how to take care of their own health, not the government. That's from Kia Willis on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, agreed. It just goes to show that good intentions don't always equal good results. Mask mandates might sound good, but, they're unlibertarian, and they don't necessarily equal good results, even if autoimmune people, even people with immunocompromised people think so. That's important to remember, So people need to remember that, it should be up to each individual, and we shouldn't have these blanket mandates for really anything. Then we have Trump, take the guns first, go for due process second. That's from thehill.com by Donald Key, and I would agree that it's definitely too authoritarian. We need to let everyone has the right to bear arms, and we need to support people with their own right to defense, and, yeah, I think that's why I don't really agree with They always find a way to take the guns, and I don't think that's good. I think everyone has a right to guns, no matter how messed up I would consider you to be. You have a right, the Second Amendment right to bear arms. Then we have politicians don't follow through. They don't deliver on promises. They don't cut spending. They don't end wars. So I'm not much concerned with rhetoric. I just want a wrecking ball from Clint Russell on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, Trump's a poser for his first term is an indication. He might say some stuff, but you will get through his term with the deep state still very much intact. If anything, I think the biggest problem is that he didn't break enough rules, even though everyone seems to be convinced he's the biggest rule breaker ever. I think his persecution just might be feared in order to make people think that he isn't the same as the rest of them. So that's my thoughts there. And you gotta remember, the deep state doesn't operate on left versus right and it operated long before Trump got there and will almost certainly be there long after he's gone. Remember, it's the state versus you, and that's true regardless of whichever knucklehead is in the White House. Then we have Cato Podcast discussing the origins and meaning of libertarians and featuring Georgism from Room My Circle Jerk. And see, they have a link to the podcast not really compatible with people whose view is right wing conservative Coke propaganda. And let's see, the vote was 6%. 6 people found it interesting, 3 people said, "Grr, get out here with that Coke propaganda." So, yeah, I personally voted it was interesting. So that's my thoughts there. I think, we gotta support libertarianism, If you want to consider if you go around, I think you should be able to. But I personally think, everything could be considered propaganda to some extent. And that's why I think we need to support, fighting for people to think whatever they want about anything, as long as they're not forcing their thoughts down other people's throats and controlling what other people do and say. Then we have Feds are at it again, and that's a post I found from my state's LP Signal group. What's going on in Florida? It's a guy saying, I prefer Biden over Trump because they send Biden's rockets to the Ukraine, and, it's a neo-Nazi guy saying that. And I said, more content to help keep people stuck on D versus R forever. I'm not 100% sure the guy is a Fed since he doesn't have the classic face covering. He might just be one of the knuckleheads who falls for the entrapment. But it's definitely an idea that I think his Fed buddies implanted him at the very least. They need the public divide between D and R so that each thinks the other are Nazis. Then we have Alabama can prosecute those who help women trial for abortion, Attorney General says. From AL.com, right, Chi-Town 20, we talked about that a few days ago. This is, I think that we talked about in the last one. This is across from the r/go subreddit. But yeah, I definitely would agree that's very authoritarian, and, we definitely should be allowing interstate travel for any reason whatsoever. We shouldn't be not just allowing it, we should be allowing it. People should be, we have a right to free travel, I would say. Then we have top authoritarian GOP lawyer decries ease of campus voting and private pitch to RNC from WashingtonPost.com by Chi-Town 20. And it's cross post from the conservative terrorism subreddit, and I would agree that that's kind of too authoritarian. If people want to vote, I think people will vote. I don't really care too much for democracy because I don't like people forcing their cultural standards on other people. But I do agree that I think if people want to vote, they should be able to vote. Then we have forced labor still exists in America. Story I worked in federal prison sweatshops for 23 cents an hour from theairstuff.com by Chi-Town 20, and that's crossed from the r/work reform subreddit. I very much agree with that. The thing is that people are, there's people are going to be, as long as people require labor, there's probably always going to be forced labor because, people need to be working to produce stuff, and that's how a lot of stuff can be so cheap because it's produced for forced labor. That's why a lot of manufacturing is in foreign countries where they can still get away with forced labor a lot easier than in the U.S., and even then you can still have some in the U.S., as this article says. Then we have anti-LGBTQ plus hospitality is rising. We ask queer people how safe they feel. If LGBTQ plus Americans are feeling increasingly anxious about their safety, they have good reason. That's from LGBTQnation.com by Chi-Town 20, and I said, I swear social media thinks it's either 1972 or there in Uganda when it comes to LGBTQ stuff. It's true for a lot of IDPOL stuff, but it's really bad when it comes to LGBTQ, especially when LGBTQ people are more accepting than they've ever been, and a lot of complaints about their behavior at Pride in front of children are completely valid. And Will Power 69 replied, it's funny how right-wingers love to tell LGBT people what they're dealing with. I say, personally, more in the center. I would also say that I'm bisexual, but I really can't get too many sexual experiences. I also share tons of LGBT people like Emery Greenwald, J.J. McCullough, and Brad Palumbo, gay men, and she had a bisexual woman. If I'm anti-LGBTQ, I'm really bad at doing it. And then I added, the problem to me is that this stuff is at the intersection of the three most annoying things in politics: victim mentality, identity politics, and fear-mongering. I personally support LGBTQ people and I would march with them like if the blacks, but we need to move on from the constant oppression Olympics. And finally, we have the U.S. is totally not a welfare state for My Circle Jerk, and they have federal tax revenues and spending, transportation 142, veterans benefits 274, yeah, I definitely, it's $26.272 trillion total spending, $4.896 trillion total revenue, $1.375 trillion total deficit. And I agree that the U.S. is definitely is kind of a grifter state. I think they're all grifter states, and it's definitely welfare is just one of the states grifts, I would say. So I think we're gonna, let's see if there's anything new. I don't think there's anything new. Let's just check this here. So I think we're gonna wrap up there, and I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.